Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
Welcome to today's show. As usual, we have an unbelievable guest, Nicole Espinosa, the short sale. I don't know if we call her queen. I think, short sale queen is her unofficial title, I would say. So Nicole's been doing short sales a long time. Her and I just had a conversation a little bit ago before I hit record of like, are short sales really around? And it sounds like they are. And Nicole is going to tell us why and how she's doing them and how she could potentially help you guys. So Nicole, thanks for coming and sharing your short sale story.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So like I just said a little bit ago that, when I saw short sales, I thought to myself, man, back in 08, 09, 10, I can't remember the exact years. There was about a 3-year stint where I was doing a ton of short sales. And then obviously that game faded out eventually as the market became hotter and, the defaults and the foreclosures just weren't as prevalent. So let's start with your backstory. You started about that far ago, 2010 or so, 2011, I think is when you started. So first of all, share your backstory and how you got into short sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously I didn't wake up one day and been like, this is what I want to specialize in. Right. So my first experience with real estate was actually working with asset managers in 2008, when foreclosures were at an all-time high. And I was working with the REO listings, which are the foreclosure listings. And so I was managing, we had at the time, over 150 orders or listings a month that we would have to, deal with evictions and have to deal with listing them and getting the values and that whole process. So it was complete chaos because I remember at the time they would just send you the legal description. They're like, I have no idea what's even going on with this property. We just foreclosed on them, figure it out. Right. So understanding how the banks worked and operated was huge. And that really laid the foundation for what we do today. And I did it for about 2 years and it was the worst job that I've ever had, right? Like there was deadlines of like midnight and the banks weren't even there, but you had to turn everything in. And it's a completely different ballgame when the bank is your client as opposed to negotiating with the bank. So when I got out of doing working with the asset managers and REO, I had my license. And of course, the first listing that I got, I was so excited, I'm hungry, I'm a new agent, and it comes to find out that they couldn't afford to sell it. So I'm like talking to all the agents in my office and I'm like, hey, what do I do? He owes too much, but he wants to sell. And in my mind, I'd already like made the commission, right? Like most new agents or new people that do get deals, they're like, hey, I got this deal. And I just figured it out. Like I called the bank at the time and I was like, everyone's telling me to run away from them. And I called the bank at the time and I was on the phone for like an hour and a half and just asking every question like, okay, is this possible? Like, what do I do? I submit this. And that's literally how I started my first short sale. And I realized really quickly that not only was there a lack of knowledge when it comes to this niche in the industry, but most people ran away from them. Most people don't understand. And they're like, hey, let's just don't even waste your time. So for me, the way I think is just how can we create a solution, right? How can we, and that's all real estate is, like, how can you be a solution provider for, potential clients and things like that. And so at the time, I just started working with sellers that were distressed. I started developing my process. Years later, I started teaching classes on it to agents and then acquisition teams like investment companies. And then so locally in the DFW area, when people would be on social media, they would say, hey, talk to Nicole. She's the queen of short sales, or she's a short sale queen. And so that's kind of how I got the nickname. And then I branded the short sale queen in 2019. So we've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. It sounds like your journey started like mine did. When I started doing short sales, people didn't want to take them on. I was getting referrals from agents, created a small team to negotiate the short sales. And we were doing, 20 to 30 negotiations at a time, which is small time. It sounds like compared to what you're doing, because you guys
that's a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you guys are doing, 100 plus at a time, which is amazing. So tell us how you work. One of the things that kind of blew me away is you said you're 100% referral based. So when people have a deal that they don't want to do, they send it to you. Tell us a little bit about that process and how you work with agents and investors on that side of it to help them complete a short sale without them having to get involved.
Absolutely. So, being 100% referral in general is extremely difficult, right? Like it took years and years to be able to get our phone to ring, to get people to trust us, because it's all reputation, right? As quick as you can get there is as quick as you can lose it. So we pride ourselves on a basic concept. So you ready? We do what we say we're going to do. So if you send something over to us and we tell you we're going to handle it, you're going to get updated every step of the way. You're going to know what's going on, and we're going to call and we're going to follow through. One of my biggest pet peeves in this industry is that people spend so much time and energy trying to get the referral, or the business, but then they don't do anything to keep it. Right. And so for me, I was like, I need to create a system where if people are going to send business to us, that they feel like, hey, Nicole and her team are on it. Right. So what we did was two different things. So real estate investors, of course, when you're an investor, you're focused on what? Equity, right? High equity. That's all you're focused on. If the deal doesn't make sense, you're moving on to the next lead, right? But we know how expensive it is to get these leads, to finally get someone on the phone, first of all, get good data, and then get someone on the phone, build rapport, and then get them to want to sell to you. And the worst thing that you can do is have this opportunity and then just throw it away because they owe too much, right? So it's a perfect synergy with real estate investors because they're already throwing away the lead. Why wouldn't you partner with us, refer it to us? We do all the negotiations, and we can now help negotiate your offer and represent that homeowner. And then if you don't want to buy it, because we work with a lot of wholesalers that don't want to close on it, we pay you for the lead. So either way, your cost per lead goes down significantly because now you're able to recuperate all of these dead leads that you would have walked away from, right? And we handle everything. We handle, literally you're just referring it over. You're saying, hey, work with my team that does short sales. And then from then on, that's our client. So that's how we work with real estate investors, giving them more opportunities to purchase these properties at a discount. And then real estate agents, we have so much training. We have so many things that we can teach agents. And so there's not a lot of education. We're super passionate about that because like I said earlier, this was the one niche in our industry that nobody talks about. No one understands. Even on a national level, there's no education when it comes to this. And if it is, it's the most basic, unrelevant, let me give you the definition and that's pretty much it. So we do a lot of education for real estate agents as well as real estate investors. And then realtors, they refer over their clients to us because they know that they're going to get taken care of.
So again, the elephant in the room is, okay, the market's hot. How are there properties that you can negotiate short sales on when if you bought it in the last year, the property's probably appreciated 10%, maybe even 20%, since people bought it. So tell us a little bit about that. What's the typical deal you work with, and just kind of dive into that a little bit so we can understand that better.
Absolutely. So of course, when I get this all the time, right? Especially on YouTube, people are like, are you crazy? This is an amazing market. But what you have to understand is that the market really does not have a huge influence or a huge play when it comes to someone's personal financial situation. So someone can easily be upside down if they're doing loan modifications, if they've been behind for a couple of years, if they've done forbearance. Let's talk about something recent, right? So we went through a pandemic and people have not been paying for over a year, right? Almost coming up on 2 years that people have been behind, and that entire balance is still due. So once they come out of forbearance, they go right into a loan modification, which basically they're asking for assistance to modify the terms of the loan, but they're not forgiving anything. And so the taxes, the escrow, the fees, all of that starts accumulating, and that balance goes up significantly. The market can appreciate, I mean, it's crazy, right? The market has been absolutely crazy, but it's never going to appreciate the amount that the loan goes up. So I'll give you an example. We had, and I'm always posting like these crazy payoffs just so for people to ask me questions like that so they can kind of see it. There was a client that bought a property 3 years ago and she owed 300,000 and we just got her payoff back and it's 420,000.
Oh, wow.
So for it to increase that much, there's no way that the market, and not only that, you think about it, if they're not paying their mortgage, they're not upkeeping the house. They're not maintaining it. They're not only behind on their mortgage, they're behind on HOA, they're behind on their taxes, they're behind on their second lien. So it adds up very quickly. And yes, there are people that we've been able to sell the property where they didn't have to go through a short sale because the market was so great that they're able to break even. In any other market, they would have had to do a short sale. So there are people like that, but a huge majority drag it out as long as they can. Like we have people that are going to be fighting with the bank until next year for the next couple years, and their balance keeps increasing. So we're going to see so many more short sales in the next couple years because of that.
Amazing. Yeah, that's going to be good for your business. It sounds like, especially with like the moratoriums and, that kind of thing, right? That's where it's adding up. People are thinking, oh, I don't have to make my payment, but they don't realize is how big their balance is going to be 6, 12, 18 months down the road when, the banks finally say, hey, let's get something worked out. You need to start making payments, right?
And they never have money saved, right? So we work with people that are like 5 to 10 years behind and they never have 5 to 10 years of mortgage payments saved. They're still as broke, if not, even in a worse situation than they were before.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So 11 markets, tell us what markets you're in right now.
So we are in 13 states. So it's a lot. Our primary markets where we do the most is Florida, Texas, New Jersey. We have a lot in California. We have partners all over the country. So people that have gone through our mentorship program that we're starting to refer out, those are our primary markets. We are in other markets where we partner with investors and agents if it makes sense. But it's a long list. Those are our main markets.
So let's say, okay, I live in San Diego.
Yeah.
Let's say I have a deal here. I come across, they're behind on payments. They owe too much. I send them to you. Tell us about the whole process behind it. You list it, negotiate. Do you do the whole process? Kind of go through that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're an investor. So if you're like, hey, I've got this deal, you refer to us, we pre-qualify them. So we make sure that, we have all the information up front. My biggest tagline I always say is we always try to be proactive instead of reactive, right? So if we take this on, we're closing it. We're going to make sure that we can actually close it and negotiate it on your behalf as well as the sellers. So we'll get all the information we need so we can get a complete short sale packet. And then we work with you on what your offer is so that we can send in your offer with the short sale paperwork. At that point, we don't need to list it because we already have your offer. So we're negotiating your offer with the bank. The bank is going to order a third-party appraisal. So at the end of the day, the bank is going to determine how much they're willing to accept for the property. And you've done short sales, so you know that a little bit about that process where that's where the negotiations come into play, right? So when the appraisal comes out, if you're sending this to us, we'll work with you hey, give me everything that you have, contractor bids, anything that you have so we can help justify your offer, right? In order to negotiate at a discount. At the end of the day, if the property is distressed and it won't qualify for financing, an investor has to buy it, right? And we have to justify a discount because you have to make money. So that's what we do. We try to get the appraisal down as low as possible. And then the banks, depending on what type of loan it is, they'll accept a certain percentage. So for example, FHA loans will accept 88%. Conventional, it's negotiable. We've gotten it down as low as 80% of that as is value. So every week you're going to get an update from the office. So every Monday, the seller, the investor, the person that referred it to us, everybody gets an update. So you'll know every step of the way kind of where we're at.
Awesome. Now, does the bank require for it to be listed on the MLS?
So there are some lenders that do require that. If that's the case, then, we will put it on the market. If we're already under contract with you, then, it's going to go pending. But at the end of the day, like I said, your offer is the one we're negotiating. So you'll have the first right of refusal. If you come back and you're like, hey, this doesn't make sense, because not every deal is a deal, right? So there's going to be some properties that are in great condition, but it's the homeowner that's distressed, not the house, right? So in those situations, then yes, we will list it and then we pay you for the lead.
Okay. And then from a standpoint of, let's say, so if I send a deal to you and I'm an investor, obviously I will put a contract in, submit an offer. you negotiate it. But if I'm an agent, I just want to refer to you. How do you work with them? You said you pay them for the lead and then you take it and you list it. Is that correct?
Correct. So we'll give them 25% of whatever we make, and then they'll still get updates. And that's the best part, because with realtors, they know that their client's being taken care of. They're still getting a referral fee. And that way they can keep that business. They can still be like the expert, like, hey, I know someone. And that helps them, keep that referral business for them, because that came from, their clients. But yes, we give them 25% of whatever we make. And we also pay the investor for the lead if they don't purchase it. So either way, the goal, of course, is for the investor to buy it, right? Because that's where the real money is. But if you don't want to buy it or you can't, then at least you'll get compensated, for the lead that you would have walked away from, anyways.
Gotcha. Fantastic. So tell us about, so obviously the process, I mean, it is a lot to negotiate a short sale. If you don't know what you're doing, you miss a piece, they're going to come back to you and it becomes harder, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how you work. So obviously you take leads and then you will work those however you work them, whether it's negotiate for the investor or negotiate for the agent, list the property and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tell us how you work from a standpoint of working with the average person. Are you, do you teach people how to do this themselves so they can do it themselves? Or are you more just, hey, send the deal to me and I'll work it? Or, do you kind of work both sides of that?
So we do both, honestly. I've never asked for business my entire career, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like how I built my brand was I was like, hey, use me as a resource, because I feel like I would rather have you help the homeowner and make sure that they don't get foreclosed on, and help you as much as I can. But here's the thing, most people don't want to do it, right? So at the end of the day, if you don't want to process it, we're here. Like, we're always here. If you do and you want to learn, then we can absolutely teach you. And so we are in the education space. So we do have a mentorship program. Like, we have a boot camp that's a 4-week boot camp for realtors and investors. And it helps tremendously, even if it's like, let's just say, obviously realtors, so that they can represent the client, but even with investors, because I used to go and teach acquisition teams all the time on how to make better calls. Right? Because if you understand what the homeowners that are in pre-foreclosure, if you understand the objections of like, hey, I want to keep my house, which is the biggest one, right? They need to work with you. They don't want to work with you, but they're heavily solicited by everyone and their mother. And so how can they trust you? Right? And so what I always teach is to lead with value. Like, if you want to get that homeowner on board, it's going to be so much easier when you are a resource for them and you start answering their questions and inform them of, hey, this is the process. No one's going to explain this to you, but let me explain your options, right? It doesn't make sense for you to keep the house because you can't afford it. So we don't want you to end up in foreclosure because you are, trying to drag this out or whatever. Let's look at the bigger picture. And so I teach, agents and investors how to make better phone calls, how to build rapport, not to be like that salesperson that's just trying to close the deal and lead with, hey, I can close in 2 weeks, or I have cash, close in 7 days. And that's like the worst thing you can tell someone that's in foreclosure, because they're like, no, I don't want to close in 7 days. I have nowhere to go. Right. And so we are heavy in the education space. We wrote the book, How to Master Short Sales. So it's a manual, and we literally just gave it all away, right? We explain everything you need to know in that book. So we do a lot of teaching, and of course, YouTube, I do free content on there for agents and investors.
Awesome. So how long does someone have to be behind on their payments in order to be able to be qualified for a short sale? Because back in the day, it used to be 90 days. Is it still 90 days they have to be behind before the bank will negotiate?
It's actually, as long as they're behind. So it can be as little as 30 days. So there's no requirement. And FHA is the only one with a requirement, and they have to be at least 30 days behind before you can actually close on it.
Wow, just 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, so I work with a lot of real estate investors around the country. I've got a TV program and mastermind and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, if we presented this to them, if they would be able to utilize you and your services, because as investors, we're always looking at, okay, how can we do a deal that we normally wouldn't been able to do? Just like, I think you kind of mentioned that a little bit ago, on the agent side. So I think this is something we should present to, and this is a side conversation, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud that we should present this to the real estate investors I work with. Cause I feel like
we're always just another tool in your toolbox, right? Like all real estate is how can I provide a solution? Like if you can be that person that has a solution for every problem, you are the most valuable and you will get the most deals, right? So if you can figure out, if I can't do it myself, who can I connect with that can do it? You're going to make more money, right? You're going to help more people, and overall, you're going to do more business.
Awesome. Fantastic. What are some biggest lessons you've learned? Like, what are the things throughout the last 11 years doing short sales that you've learned that someone you think could take value out of?
I think one of my biggest lessons, especially with what we do, right, with negotiations, is that if you're getting a no, if someone's saying that they can't do it, you're either talking to the wrong person, or you're not asking the right questions. And I think that's huge. I think you can apply that to every area of life, right? Because there are some people that just think, like, I can't tell you how many times I hear, let's just say Bank of America, right? Bank of America won't do this. They won't do short sales, or they won't negotiate, or this is what they'll take. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. They absolutely will. You just didn't talk to the right person, or you didn't ask the right questions to get you where you needed to go. And that you can apply to talking to sellers when you're cold calling. You can apply that to any just problems in general, because you need to get past the people that are just like, absolutely not. I can't think outside the box. I can't think of a solution. I'd rather just focus on, no, this is the problem. And then the other thing is just the tenacity and consistency, right? Like with what we do, of course, because this is like my MO, I've got to do everything that's like so hard, right? I couldn't have just done traditional real estate that was, looked cute and whatever. Like you have to put everything into it. Like I highly focused on this one thing. And I think a lot of people get into the business and they're like, they see all of these shiny objects, right? We're salespeople and like ADD, like I'm excited about this. And then, I'm excited about this. And they never really gain traction because they're all over the place. And so what does that mean? That means your brand is all over the place. And if someone can't associate you with your brand, you didn't do it right. So I think the biggest thing is just being consistent and going all in with your vision, and, not, even when it's not sexy, right? Even when it's hard, even when it's redundant, just all the time. And I think that is, people don't put enough credibility towards just that consistency, and people say it all the time. So it's kind of like an overused word, but it's honestly how we got here.
So. Yeah, no, definitely good advice for sure. So one thing I'll mention, I just remembered something I used to teach, because I did short sale classes too back in the day. I remember one thing I would teach is, the question that most people would have is, why would banks take a 20%, 30%, 40% hit off of what is owed or what the value is, whatever the ratios are?
Yeah.
And one thing people don't understand is bad debt looks bad on their books, right? If someone is 30, 60, 90 days, the further behind they are, the worse it looks, if I remember correctly. And then they also have to keep reserves from their bad debt. If I remember correctly, if they have $100,000 in bad debt, they have to carry 3 times in reserves or something of that nature. I don't know if you know that number. So that makes them carry more cash on hand that does nothing, as opposed to being able to lend it out. So not only are they not making money on this money, but they're also not making on money they have to keep in reserves per the Federal Reserve to make sure that they can pay those bad debts back if they need to, right?
And you also have to remember too, in addition to that at the end of the day, the bank is only going to get what the house is worth, right? And so at the end of the day, what are they going to do? They're going to spend money on a foreclosure attorney. They're going to spend money taking the asset, which is the house, back. They're going to have to maintain the property. They're going to be out even more money where they haven't been receiving anything. So all they're doing is paying a crap ton of money to get market value. So if they think, hey, if it's, the seller is maintaining the home, they're required during the short sale, they're required to cooperate. So they're not going to destroy the house, right? In a foreclosure, they don't care, right? They're going to do whatever. So they're really going to make more money during a short sale than they would in a foreclosure. They're going to net more. And so as long as you're packaging it that way to the bank, they're always going to take a loss. It's when they think that they have a better chance to make more money in a foreclosure sale. That's when you are not negotiating correctly. You're not showing why this is a better deal. That's when you get it denied. That's when they come back and you have all of these private investors, like conventional loans, where people are like, hey, they just refuse to take a loss. Well, it's because they did their numbers and they think that they're going to make more money in a foreclosure. So that's why they agree to take that loss.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, hey, Nicole, I love blue oceans. This is a blue ocean. This is something that I don't hear many people talking about. I talk with hundreds of real estate investors every single month, and none of them mention short sales. Back 10 plus years ago, that was the big buzz, short sales, negotiating, that kind of thing. So it's really cool that you carved out this niche and been able to do it for so long. And it sounds like this is a good time for you to be in this business, because the moratorium and people falling behind on their payments and, losing their job with COVID and all that kind of stuff, it just seems like a really good time to be in this space. So if someone wants to get a hold of you to either maybe hear about your training, or if they have a property they want to refer to you, can you give them some info on how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always head to our website. It's thethessqueen.com. It has, where you can refer a lead, as well as information about our classes and our education. And then you can always head to YouTube. We have free content if you're just starting, or if you're just wanting to learn and kind of like dive into it. And YouTube is the Short Sale Queen. So you guys can head there, and it has our information as well.
All right, fantastic. As we wrap up, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Just that, especially with everything that's coming up, if you guys that are listening, if you guys have questions, even if it's on deals that don't involve us, we always pride ourselves on being a resource for the community. So you're always welcome to call the office, pick our brains, and see if we can help in any way, add value to your business.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Nicole. Hopefully people reach out to you to learn more about short sales if they want to take advantage of this opportunity, and then also bring you deals that they normally would not have been able to do because there's too much owed on the property. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks again, Nicole. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.